All right, we'll be moving to the next part of our storytelling or speaking with me. Let's continue. This is going to be chapter 2, A Merry Christmas. Jo was the first to wake up in the grey dawn of Christmas morning. No stockings hung at the fireplace, and for a moment she felt as much disappointed as she did a long ago, when her little sock fell down because it was so crammed, so full of goodies. Then she remembered her mother's promise and, slipping a hand under the pillow, drew out a little crimson covered book. She knew it well, for it was that beautiful old story of the best life ever lived. And Jo felt that it was a true guidebook for many pilgrims going on a long journey. She woke Meg with "Merry Christmas" and bade her see what was under her pillow. A green covered book appeared with the same picture inside, and a few words written by their mother, which made their one present very precious in their eyes. Presently, Beth and Amy woke to rummage and find their little books also. One dove colored, the other blue, and all sat looking at and talking about them, while the east grew rosy with the coming day. In spite of her small vanities, Margaret had a sweet and pious nature, which unconsciously influenced her sisters, especially Jo, who loved her very tenderly and obeyed her because her advice was so gently given. "Girls," said Meg seriously, looking from the tumbled head beside her to the two little night-capped ones in the room beyond, "Mother wants us to read and love and mind these books, and we must begin at once. We used to be faithful about it, but since Father went away and all this war trouble unsettled us, we have neglected many things. You can do as you please, but I shall keep my book on the table here and read a little every morning as soon as I wake, for I know it will do me good and help me through the day." Then she opened her book and began to read. Jo put her arm round her and, leaning cheek to cheek, read also, with a quiet expression so seldomly seen on her restless face. "How good Meg is! Come, Amy, let's do as they do. I'll help you with the hard words, and they'll explain things if we don't understand," whispered Beth, very much impressed by the pretty books and her sister's example. "I'm glad mine is blue," said Amy, and then the rooms were very still, while the pages were softly turned and the winter sunshine crept in to touch the bright heads and serious faces with a Christmas greeting. "Where is Mother?" asked Meg, and she and Jo ran down to thank her for their gifts half an hour later. "Goodness only knows. Some poor critter came a-beggin', and your ma went straight off to see what was needed. There never was such a woman for giving away wittles and drink, clothes and fire," replied Hannah, who had lived with the family since Meg was born and was considered by them all more a friend than a servant. "She will be back soon, I think, so fry our cakes and have everything ready," said Meg, looking over at the presents, which were collected in a basket and kept under the sofa, ready to be produced at a proper time. "Why, where is Amy's bottle of cologne?" she added, as the little flask did not appear. "She took it out a minute ago and went off with it to put it on a ribbon, or some such notion," replied Jo, dancing about the room to take the first stiffness off the new army slippers. "How nice my handkerchiefs look, don't they? Hannah washed the ironed them for me, and I marked them all myself," said Beth, looking proudly at somewhat uneven letters which had cost her such labor. "Bless the child. She's gone and put Mother on them instead of M. March. How funny," cried Jo, taking one up. "Isn't that right? I thought it was better to do it so, because Meg's initials are MM, and I don't want anyone to use those for but Mommy," said Beth, looking troubled. "It's all right, dear, and a very pretty idea. Quite sensible, too, for no one can mistake them ever now. It will please her very much, I know, said Meg, with a frown for Joe and a smile for Beth. There's Mother. Hide the basket, quick, cried Joe, as the door slammed and the steps sounded in the hall. Amy came in hastily and looked rather abashed when she saw her sisters all waiting for her. Where have you been? What have you been hiding behind you? Asked Meg, surprised to see, by her hood and cloak, that lazy Amy had been up so early. Don't laugh at me, Joe. I didn't mean anyone should know till the time came. I only meant to change the little bottle for a big one. And I gave all my money to get it, and I'm truly trying not to be selfish anymore. As she spoke, Amy showed the handsome flask which replaced the cheap one, and looked so earnest and humble in her little effort to forget herself that Meg hugged her on the spot, and Joe pronounced her a trump, while Beth ran to the window and picked her finest rose to ornament the stately bottle. You see, I felt ashamed of my present after reading and talking about being good this morning, so I ran round the corner and changed it the minute I was up. And I'm so glad, for mine is the handsomest now. Another bang of the street door sent the basket under the sofa and the girls to the table, eager for breakfast. Merry Christmas, Mommy. Many of them. Thank you for our books. We read some and mean to every day, they all cried in a chorus. Merry Christmas, dear daughter. Merry Christmas to all. I'm glad you began at once and hope you will keep on. But I want to say one word before we sit down. Not far away from here lies a poor woman with little newborn baby. 6 children are huddled onto one bed to keep from freezing, for they have no fire. There is nothing to eat over there, and the oldest boy came to tell me they were suffering hunger and cold. My girls, will you give them your breakfast as a Christmas present? They were all unusually hungry, having waited nearly an hour, and for a minute no one spoke. Only a minute, for Joe exclaimed impetuously, I'm so glad you came before we began. May I go and help carry the things for the poor children? Asked Beth eagerly. Shall I take the cream and the muffins? Added Amy heroically, giving up the article she most liked. Meg was already covering the buckwheats and piling the bread onto one big plate. I thought you'd do it, said Mrs. March, smiling as if satisfied. You shall all go and help me, and when we come back we will have bread and milk for breakfast, and make it up at dinner time. They were soon ready, and the procession set out. Fortunately, it was early, and they went through back streets. So few people saw them, and no one laughed at the queer party. A poor, bare, miserable room it was, with broken windows, no fire, ragged bedclothes, a sick mother, wailing baby, and a group of pale, hungry children cuddled under one old quilt trying to keep warm. How big the eyes stared and the blue lips smiled as the girls went in. Ach, my Gott, it is good angels come to us, said the poor woman, crying for joy. Funny angels in hoods and mittens, said Joe, and set them to laughing. In a few minutes, it really did seem as if kind spirits had been at work there. Hannah, who had carried wood, made a fire and stopped up the broken panes with old hats and her cloak. Mrs. March gave the mother tea and gruel and comforted her with promises of help while she dressed the little baby as tenderly as if it had been her own. The girls meanwhile spread the table, set the children round the fire, and fed them like so many hungry birds, laughing, talking, and trying to understand the broken, funny English. This is good. Danke, Kinder, cried the poor things as they ate and warmed their purple hands at the comfortable blaze. The girls had never been called angel children before and thought it very agreeable, especially Jo, who had been considered a Sancho ever since she was born. That was a very happy breakfast, though they didn't get any of it, And when they went away, leaving comfort behind, I think there was not in all the four merrier people than the hungry little girls who gave away their breakfasts and contented themselves with milk and bread on Christmas morning. We'll stop here, and the next time we start, they would have returned home and started with their Christmas. Please give it a like and share. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.